Welcome to Integrative You Radio, where we challenge everything conventional medicine forgot to tell you. I'm Dr. Nicole, joined by Dr. Nick, and this is the show for the black sheep families that look at life differently. We're not here to tell you what to do. We're here to open your eyes to new perspectives and new ways of thinking. Now, let's get into it.
Yeah. Feel that? The sound of possibility.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Integrative You Radio. We got Dr. Nick, Dr. Nicole here, and we're going to get blacklisted for the podcast.
We might stir some feathers today.
Stir some feathers. That's what we're working with.
I'm just a good
Not
old
ruffle.
boy.
Not ruffle.
I'm just a good old boy, you know. Glass houses sink ships.
Got it. All right, well, let's get into it. So interesting enough, I always have my own ideas of what I want to take into a podcast, but I always want to make sure that we're connecting to people's biggest problems. And so I did the due diligence today of, hey, AI, what's everybody Googling about their health? You know, what are the most common symptoms, conditions that people are asking Google, asking AI about? And go figure, it is headache, lightheadedness, dizziness, leg pain, inflammation, general swelling of different parts of the body. And I was like, oh, isn't that perfect? Because this actually connects to the very topic that we're talking about today. And it's the fact that so many people are walking around with fucking blood clots. And we're going to get into why. For those of you tin hatters, you probably already know the direction we're going to go, but we're going to go probably even beyond that. But what it comes down to is right now we live in Italy and we haven't been in the US for about 2 years, but we saw a variety of different conditions and consistencies in the US. And sadly, there was a lot of people walking around with, I don't want to say silent cardiovascular disease. They were being told, oh, you have mitral valve prolapse, or, oh, you're overweight. But in reality, what they had was a massive amount of water and edema in their body because their heart wasn't functioning optimally for a variety of root causes, which wasn't just you have mitral valve prolapse, because that's really just a description of what your heart is doing. It's actually not telling you any insight as to why that's happening. So we've seen that in the US in the 15 years that we were practicing or are practicing. We've been in Italy for about 2 years now, and we have seen such an uptick of, I would say, men more than women having heart attacks, 30 years old, 35 years old, 40 years old, and dying, some dying from the heart attack and some dying because they had a heart attack while they're driving. They had a heart attack while they were on their moto, their Vespa, their scooter, and then crashed and then had severe brain damage from it. And we don't know a lot of people. And we have just heard from the people that we know about the friend and the friend of the friend and the cousin and the this and the that. And what would you say, Nick? I think collectively I've heard of at least 30 people.
It's been a lot for sure.
And it's just happening constantly. And so when we ask a little bit more about, you know, what happened, or did they have a history, or this and that, you know, the topic comes up, and Italians are very blunt about it. They're just like, you know, we think that I'm definitely getting blacklisted, and this is going to go down if I say the word, but the jab is what caused a lot of problems for these people, and especially these younger men. And so regardless of that, the whole virus that happened in 2020, the spiked proteins alone can create a clumping of red blood cells. So that alone, having been exposed to the virus, especially if you had a severe case, and then on top of it, if you knew it or you didn't, Maybe you had blood sugar issues. And if you listen to previous podcasts, we talked about how sticky glucose floating around in your blood causes more clumping. And then maybe you have different toxins that are in the liver, which then are spilling into the venous system of your liver, which then goes straight up to your heart, to your right atrium. And maybe that's causing clumping and clots. So there's a lot of people that already had underlying things going on. If they knew it or they didn't, most don't know because conventional testing is not revealing these issues. And then we had this epidemic or this pandemic where people got exposed to spiked proteins. And then we also had additional spiked proteins and a variety of other things when people then went ahead and did their due diligence of getting the jab. So it's kind of a shitstorm for a lot of people, and people don't feel well, and people are having symptoms that are being marked benign or being marked as, we don't really know what's going on, but if you start fainting, we'll investigate further. So people are walking around and feeling lightheaded. They're feeling dizzy. And it's like, okay, well, if you don't have full-blown vertigo, then we're going to just leave it alone. If you don't have full-blown migraines every day that you can't get out of bed, we're going to leave it alone. If you're just lightheaded sometimes, we're going to leave it alone. But essentially, these are all signs to investigate. Do you actually have fucking clots in your blood, or even something called antiphospholipid syndrome, which we'll talk about more in depth as we go on.
Keep going.
Okay. I wasn't sure if I was like, I always do the thing where I talk most of the time. So essentially, we've had a variety of different people coming through our doors over the years. And I would say in the more recent years, we've had people coming in with headaches, migraines. We've had people coming in with lightheadedness. We've had people coming in saying, I have vertigo. We have had people coming in saying, I can't lose weight, but I have a lot of pain in my legs and my arms. And we've actually, one of the other cases is we had a severe case of anemia. And these people, as we dove deeper, we ran markers like the D-dimer, and then we ran markers like cardiolipin antibodies. We've run even more expansive antiphospholipid syndrome panels. I'll explain that in a moment. These are all different ways of looking at, is there clotting happening? And very often, somebody might have an elevated D-dimer and the other panels are normal, or it might be vice versa. So if you really want to know, do you have this going on? You need to run a multitude of markers to look at all of the different aspects. You need to look at your thrombin. You need to look at your clotting time. You need to look at all of these things. And so, you might be thinking like, oh, well, this sounds really advanced, and don't I have to go to a special cardiologist? Sadly, your cardiologist probably doesn't know half these markers that I'm talking about. And your cardiologist, the most standard thing they're going to do is they're going to run a stress test. And if you pass a stress test, you're good to go. But you still are walking out of there with a series of symptoms that you walked in with no answers. The thing about antiphospholipid syndrome is I came across this kind of crazy by accident very early in my career. I had a woman. She was an older woman. She was, her daughters brought her in because they were like, we think she's getting dementia, and we've always been more wellness oriented and we want to get ahead of it. And I was running a series of panels on her, and the lab messed up and they ran antiphospholipid syndrome, which I actually wasn't very well educated on at that time. And it came back with multiple markers that were out of range. And essentially what that meant is that she had an autoimmune condition that was causing excess blood clots. And some of the clotting, based on our DNA testing, was actually happening in the upper parts of her body. It was happening in the carotid arteries, and it was also happening in the jugular veins. And this was causing massive issues with blood going up to the brain and also blood draining out of the brain. So she was having massive oxygenation issues to her brain, which was then leading her to having the subtleties, like the start of memory loss, which the daughters were very great that they were like, we're noticing this and we want to make sure that we don't leave it and think, oh, it's no big deal, mom's old, and then all of a sudden she has full-blown dementia. But it wasn't a brain problem per se, it was a cardiovascular problem. And this, now that I've learned about this was probably 10 years ago, this is something that I run often, especially in the past 6 years. And there are tons of people that are walking around with an autoimmune blood clotting disorder that have no fucking idea.
And don't get me wrong, that was that specific client. Some people are cardiovascular problems that create and cause the brain problem or the central nervous system problem. And then in that case, vice versa. So we're not saying something's an all or nothing, but, if you step back and view with common sense, which isn't so common today, that there is a huge post effect from the jab jab.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not here to say be a victim, because that's the opposite of the takeaway. If you're taking notes right now, write this down. I am not a victim. Doesn't matter what your choice was, because every single person always makes a choice, a decision in that moment based on perceiving more benefits than drawbacks. Every single person. So whether you got the chop or you didn't, you did that and you made that decision based on that moment. It's serving you, your family, etc., based on perceiving more benefits than drawbacks. After that moment, we can gather more data. We can have more symptoms, which is more data. Things can change. The world around us can change. Information coming out can change. I mean, it was changing. We're going to get deeper into that anyways. And then with that more data, you can make a different decision based on benefits and drawbacks. So when evaluating everything moving forward, it's always to be aware of what's most important to you. Your top value is what we call it. The things that actually are fulfilling in life and not depleting. When you make decisions that are congruent with that, congruent with your values, what's most important to you, what's going to give you the most amount of energy, health, vitality, that is what's going to be in alignment for you to be healthy and adaptable. When you go against that, when you make a decision against that, that's what starts to break the immune system down. That's what starts to break the nervous system down. That's what creates distress and breaks down the epithelial tissues and the coagulation of the blood and increasing the platelets, and is connected to blood clots. So in the psychosomatic aspect of how I look at it, it's not so much as did the vaccine create this or not, but was it the individual in alignment or not with their decision, whether they got it or didn't get it? And I think that's a big part that people aren't actually talking about. They're either blaming something all or nothing. I'm like, that's not how fucking life works. Life doesn't work all or nothing. It works actually, you're a battery. And are you filling up that battery or are you depleting it? Because if you deplete it enough, everything breaks down. And when you look at blood clots in the psychosomatic, it gets deeper, but blood is your self-love. And how well are you to move that self-love, self-serving? Hence, Are you in alignment with making decisions that serve yourself? Or did you feel forced into doing something? Did you feel forced in or shamed or guilted into doing something that you didn't want to do? If that was more of the case, that's going to create that breakdown because there's the self-judgment. Then you're carrying on guilt and shame that you did something that you actually didn't want to do. And that's one of the biggest drivers that compounded mental distress on the physical body doesn't actually allow maybe something that wasn't the best thing to put inside your body, but doesn't allow your body to actually be able to adapt to it and defend yourself against it.
I think that's a good point. I was just going to say, I think that this is something that we saw, and now if we put it on people's radar, they might also see the same. Is there were people that, actively said, like, this is for me. Like, I want to get this, and I want to protect myself and protect my family, protect my neighbors, and all these things, and had less issues. And then the people that said, no, I don't want it. And then after a year or however long, they said, you're not going to have a job, or you're not going to fly, you're never going to travel again. And people were like, oh, I have to do this. And we found in our practice that the people in that situation actually were more symptomatic post. And I think it's because of the very thing that you're describing.
I mean, to keep it really simple, blood clots is connected to the flow of life.
Yeah.
The flow of life is that self-love, self-service to yourself.
The opposite is when you feel trapped.
The opposite when you feel trapped, stuck. But headaches, the dizziness, the lightheaded, that's that mental confusion going on, and like that internal civil war of like, I'm making this decision, but it's actually against everything of who I am. Mm-hmm. And then there's the component of, what I call mental warfare during that time and ongoing, is that the amount of conflicting evidence, conflicting information out there. And, if you look at everything as, a lot of even the data on the jab was incorrect, after the fact. They're like, oh, we miscalculated things. Oops. I'm like, well, that's, somebody's health's in your life. It shouldn't be an oops, my bad, without being held accountable. But that's the system we live in right now. So you have to be like empowered and self-accountable to yourself. You can't depend on somebody else caring more about you. It's just nobody else is. So,
but it's, I think that as we talk about this, before we go further, the most important thing that you guys need to take away is we're bringing this to your awareness for you to be empowered in action. We're going to give you some very, very, very particular tools of even like blood labs that you can leverage to get this information about yourself based off of a series of symptoms we're going to talk further about. But, Nick and I, as entrepreneurs, as parents, and, people just navigating life, like, there's so many times that we've been dropped to our knees and felt like, the world is crumbling. And, we've experienced big challenges. And I know that many people in the world have experienced big challenges. But with every challenge, there's opportunity. And I don't say this because I'm like, well, guys, like, this is your positive affirmations. It's just, challenge is there to help us grow and learn. And some of us tough MFers, stubborn people, sometimes get hit harder with bigger challenges, with worse health outcomes, in order for us to learn what we need to learn and grow. And so if you are the person that you're like sitting here and you're like, I got it. And yes, I have these symptoms, and and you move into that guilt and shame and this and that and blame game. That's not the point of this podcast. The point of this podcast is for you to be like, okay, I have this information about some of these symptoms that I am experiencing, or a series of symptoms that I'm experiencing. And now I actually know how to turn this challenge into an opportunity to get better testing, learn more about my body, and then have a plan moving forward. So you need to keep that in mind, because, not for it to sound brutal, but like, nobody, like the world is not taking accountability. The CDC, they're not taking accountability. They're not handing out funds for people to get better. It's just the sad reality. It's up to us in order to make the most out of, a situation that affected the entire world.
Hey, quick pause before we dive back in. If what we're talking about today is hitting home, if you've been told your labs are normal, but something's off, we built something for you. It's called the Health Decode. It's a deep dive assessment, not a quiz, not a symptom checker. It's the intake I wish every doctor started with. We look at what conventional medicine was never trained to find. Stress patterns, biological conflicts, the stuff hiding behind the normal blood work. You'll get a personalized wellness report back from our team. And here's the thing, if it clicks, if you read it and think, finally, someone actually gets it, that $47 becomes a credit toward our foundation program. So you're not spending twice just taking the first step. No pressure, no countdown timer. Just if you're tired of being told you're fine when you know you're not, head over to Integrative.health and check out the health decode. Links in the show notes. All right, let's get back into it.
And I think my brain works a little different than most people.
Just
but
a tad.
But it's always grounding back into physics for me. It's just like I get emotional, I'm reactive, I have a symptom, and pain or whatever is winning, and I'm losing, and it just getting regrounded, and energy is always in a state of balance. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So as you were talking about, if there's this massive challenge, well, there's an equal and opposite amount of massive support. But if we can only perceive the challenge, then it's going to get the best of us. And if that challenge is too big, we're going to break. So the only way, quote unquote, out of it or moving forward, hence leg pain, leg inflammation, is just the psychosomatic issue of not being able to move forward, means we have to go and increase our awareness. Where is the support? Where is it around us? Where's those opportunities that you were talking about? On the health side, there's an opportunity for me to actually dig deeper, because now I have all these new symptoms that I wasn't aware about.
Mm-hmm.
They were there. They just weren't strong enough for you to be aware of them before. So now they're to the surface, and yeah, it sucks. But it's also like, well, great, because now I can actually serve myself more. Hence, I can love myself more. Hence, no more blood clots. You might have had.
But this is just beyond this conversation. Unfortunately, most people in our career came to us because of a loss of health, because of a problem that they needed solved, and most of them, because our practice was in New Jersey, we worked with a lot of New Yorkers, people from Philly, and it's like tough personalities, and they're just like, life is hard and whatever, you just power through, and you don't complain. And so by the time they got to us, they were in pretty bad shape, and they were a bit desperate, because they're just like, I don't even know how to live anymore. I can't function. And really what a lot of people have always said to us, they're like, I came here to have less symptoms, but what really happened is you changed my perspective on so many things. And now I feel like I'm more empowered. I have better relationships around me. I quit my job to go for the career that I really wanted, or I went for the company I always wanted to open. I have a better relationship with my kids. A big one was a lot of moms, dads are like, I now, going through this experience, I look at how I am helping my kids with their health so much differently. Like, they now know, oh, my kid has a sore throat, I'm going to use the red light on them opposed to running for the antibiotic. Like, it transformed so much about the way they navigate life. It empowered them to have more common sense, to understand more about, what symptoms are alarming and what symptoms are something they can even manage on their own, or with very little help, or without needing to go the pharmacological route. So that's really what it comes down to, is when your health declines, it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity for you to figure out, where the fuck are things so imbalanced? Because there's a lot of people walking around that just don't like their life. There's a lot of people that don't like the relationships that are around them. They don't like their life. They don't like their job. They don't like a lot of things, and they feel stuck in that. And guess what? If that's your life compounded over years and years and years, you might have blood clots because you feel so fucking stuck, because that is the psychosomatic connection. Or you might just have a different set of symptoms because you're so fucking stressed out and your organs are like, dude, I can't function because you have been in fight or flight for like 20 years. So can you do something different? So these symptoms are not uncommon. People having headaches, people being lightheaded, people having dizziness. If you have those symptoms, yes, it could be other things outside of what we're talking about. But if you also are swollen and your rings are tight and your legs are swollen and you can't really see your kneecaps anymore because, you say like, I got tree trunks, or my legs are fat, or your shoes are so tight by the end of the day, your legs blow up when you go on a flight, or your legs kill you at night when you're finally laying down, they like throb and pulsate and hurt, then you might be the person we're talking about in this podcast. You might need to do the deeper investigation of, are there freaking clots in my body that are causing these symptoms and also causing me to be a ticking time bomb? Because
And when we
guess
get to
what,
that
guys?
point, it's
Go
not
ahead.
all it's not all one side, And I'm not saying just when you get to that point, it should never be one side, but it's to get results quicker, you have to work energy flows bidirectional. So you have to work bidirectional. You want to address the blood clots physically, biochemically, that's one direction, but then you want to address it on that psycho aspect of, okay, where is my life unbalanced? Where do I feel stuck? Where are all the things? And that's not always easy to figure out. I'm obsessed with the psychosomatics. I'm always studying it, and it's what I do all day with clients. So I'm learning, working, and helping them as well. But you should never be your own doctor. It's hard for me to even see the shit that I'm going through. We're all going through. You never have a lack of problems in life. There'll always be problems. And I used this very, very cool app the other day. Maybe a little biased, created by us, called Inspo. And I typed in a symptom. There's a symptom decoder portion of it that uses all of our intellectual property. And AI replied back and said, sounds like you're going through a hard time, blah, blah, blah. I want you to stop and breathe. And it said, I wrote it down, use your symptoms as a co-therapist. And when I read that, I was like, God, that's a fucking great quote. Use your symptoms as a co-therapist. And just as I read that, I became less attached to my symptoms, because I knew right when I read that, it was, yes, there is pain. Yes, I wasn't feeling good. Yes, I had a rash on my body. It was itchy. It was painful. It was burning. But it was a teacher. It was there trying to give me something. And then, it went through, and from gathering tons of data, it gave me more insight. But it was just that one line right there was like a game changer for me. I'm like, my symptoms aren't against me. They're also for me. And that gave me empowerment to really take action on doing everything to, work on the physical side of why my rashes were occurring, but also on the mental components too.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's one of the things that I love about what we created with our foundation and DNA precision programs, which we created them, by the way, to make integrative medicine more affordable and accessible to people, to families. And it actually goes through in depth and breaks down, one, all of your values, like who you are at your core, from your character to, what energizes you. Like, it actually really helps you know how to make career moves, helps you know how to, who to surround yourself with, who to expel out of your life. But it takes all of that, these like personal profiles about you, and then it takes all of your symptoms that you're experiencing. And then it also takes your entire timeline of different experiences and stressors and challenges, and it helps you understand more about what's going on in your mind, what's going on with your beliefs. Are there beliefs that are empowering you, beliefs that are holding you back? It's actually giving you insight as to how certain characteristics that you have can be a strength, but where they can actually hold you back and cause you to get triggered. Like, you learn so much about yourself, but you also don't feel stuck of, well, I hate this, or this is problematic, or I feel like I have to do this, or I should do this, or I need to do this. It helps you understand so much about yourself, your mind, and how to use it. So for those of you that are like, oh, this all sounds great, but like this is practically impossible. My life is my life and life is hard. Great. Yeah, that's your belief system in this moment. But you probably don't even have enough data about yourself in order to start choosing differently. Because
and that goes back to the headaches, the dizziness, the lightheaded, that, you know, mental warfare that's happening inside of your brain and inside of your mind. Is like, if you don't have new data, different data, more data, better data, you can't make
you could just perceive
decision.
everything as bad.
Well, you can't make a different decision. You're going to continue making the best decision you can in that moment, but it's still not a great decision for you.
Yeah. But it's even, I was thinking of this because of your rash. Your rash was bizarre because it was on your right pec, right? Mm-hmm. It was his right pec over his lung and on his right shoulder blade. It was like the exact imprint of his lung. And it was like this scaly, itchy red. And I was like, that's a really interesting pattern. And lungs have a lot to do with grief and loss. And this doesn't mean you lost someone you love. It could be the loss of your identity. It could be, you know, you shifting into a new version of yourself and having to grieve and let go of the old version. It could mean a lot of different things. But what we know about the psychosomatic and the physical connection is that when you actually have the symptoms, have the rash, you are in a healing mode. But the problem is that people that are like, what the heck are you talking about? That doesn't make any sense. For those of you that don't have the data and don't have the tools, you keep reliving the same symptoms over and over and over. Your rash comes back again. Your hives come back again. Your stomach pain comes back again because you don't understand what's happening. You don't know what it means. You don't have the data and you don't know how to heal.
And most people try to stop the healing, not to continue the healing.
Oh yeah, you get, the natural person would have went and put cortisone or hydrocortisone cream all over, get rid of it. This is bad. This is ugly. I got to go to the beach. No one's like, let me process my inner grief because my body and my mind are trying to grow me to the next better version of myself. Most people are not thinking that way.
I'm at the beach looking disgusting, introducing myself, talking to a guy, and he's like, what do you do? I was like, oh, I'm a holistic integrative doctor. Look at me.
Here I am.
Picture of fucking health. But I knew who I was, and, you know, I made a joke about it and we started talking about it. And I was like, this looks like skin issues, but this is grief healing. And it started an amazing conversation. And
they might walk away and say, hey, that fucking dude's crazy, but who knows? You never know. All right, we're at 30 minutes though. I want to give you guys a couple of specific markers. Listen, I'm going to be transparent with you. The markers I'm about to tell you about, the probability of your primary care or even in a cardiologist running these is pretty low. And I know it because I've had plenty of people say, thank you so much for giving me those markers on your last podcast or your latest blog. But isn't it crazy that my doctor wouldn't run it? This is like people that reach out to us through email or social media. And we've heard this also even from people that said, I really want to work with you, but now's not the right time. You know, maybe I can do X, Y, and Z with my primary. And the same thing, their primary is like, no, I'm not going to run that. I don't even know what those markers are. So anywho, these are all markers you could definitely find through LabCorp and Quest for anyone based in the US. I'm not 100% positive if these are accessible in Europe, but anti-cardiolipin antibodies is one marker. That marker, though, is inside of an antiphospholipid syndrome panel, which is going to be a very robust panel looking at all different aspects of clotting with your red blood cells and your platelets. There is also a platelet antibody panel. There is thrombin mixing study, which is also showcasing if there is issues with your blood clotting. And then there's also prothrombin time, PT, which is looking at how long it takes to clot. So those are some of the top markers. The easiest one that you can probably access through a practitioner is going to be the D-dimer. They're going to probably say, why do you want to run that? And so obviously you can showcase some of the symptoms that we were talking about today. But also, guys, for you, those of you that are like, oh gosh, like, I don't know, like, what if I can't get this testing done? One of the foods that is absolutely fantastic that acts like a blood thinner is garlic. Raw garlic is best, but consuming loads of raw garlic can be very beneficial as a blood thinner. If you're on blood pressure medication, you have to be careful because, or if you're on a blood thinner, then it would be problematic because that's how strong and potent it is as a blood thinner. I think you guys lost me for a minute. But I'm just wrapping up with one of the best options is garlic. Garlic is a natural blood thinner, best in its raw form. Again, if you are on blood thinners or even blood pressure medication, you have to be cautious.
Thank you for being here with us today. Remember, this isn't about telling you what to think. It's about giving you something worth thinking about. If this episode shifted your perspective, share it with someone who needs it because they won't hear this in a waiting room. Subscribe, leave a review, and if you're ready to stop guessing and start transforming, head to integrativeyou.health. We'll see you next time. Stay curious, my black sheep.